record right here, and we're good to go.
We are the Team Minions, and today we'll be giving our recommendation for your company. But first, I would like to introduce myself and my colleagues. I'm Javier Lee.
I'm Han Long Zong.
I'm Haryu Chen.
I'm Chris Santaramana.
And I'm Karen Belinda Lee.
Great. And now we're going to quickly go over our agenda for today. First, we're going to begin with an introduction, as well as go over our issues and a brief recommendation. Then, we're going to give our analysis, both the internal and external. After that, we're going to go over our alternatives, and then give our recommendations. And then finally, we're going to wrap things up with a conclusion. And now I would like to pass it on to Han, who will begin our presentation with the introduction.
Thank you, Javier. Your company has a great global recognition under the slogan "Quiet and Brilliant." Also, your company is the second largest handset manufacturer in Asia. Also, the top 5 smartphone manufacturer in the world. Meanwhile, within the industry, your company has a fierce competition with Samsung and Apple. Let me go over brief history real quick. Your company was doing the notebook-sized computer at the beginning, and after that, you're focused on pocket-sized PC. And later on, your company developed the world's first Microsoft model and iPad. And later on, the PDA product came out, and your company R&D department started shift to the mobile telecom market after the PDA product reached the 80% of your total revenue. And last, your company has very close relationship with Microsoft and Google. Here's the current issue we believe your company is facing right now. Number one is product differentiation. We believe your company has too many different product lines, and customer has difficulty to choose your product. And next is operating system. Your company don't have your own operating system, and we're trying to come up with a strategy to work with the operating system. And next is settle intellectual property war against Apple. And last issue is a tablet. Here's our brief recommendation for your company, which is going to be explained into detail later on during our presentation. And our brief recommendation, number one is keep using the Angel operating system. And then settle intellectual property war. And also standardizing marketing initiatives. And then release the HTC tablet into the market. And the last recommendation is decrease the number of models available and focus on the iconic product. And then I'm going to pass this to her to talk about the company's SWOT analysis.
Thank you, Han. Now I'm going to talk about the SWOT analysis. We see strength in your company in first, your customizable product. Second, you have more than 50 models across the globe to provide choices to customers. Third, both your company culture and the R&D department emphasize about the innovation. On the other hand, we see weaknesses in the short product life cycle. You don't have your own operating system, and the tablet is not as competitive as the models of the market. We definitely see opportunities in your good relationship with both Google and Microsoft, as well as the phone carriers such as T-Mobile, as well as the partnership with other technologies like this audio. Unfortunately, we see threats in the very heavy competition among the industry, especially with Apple and Samsung, as well lawsuit with Apple. For the internal analysis, we see your company has a strong financial, which is good. Your company is globally recognized with different rewards, and you have a good relationship with other parties. Your innovative R&D department came up with the unique user interface, which is rare and valuable. Next, I will pass on to Javier to talk about the external analysis.
Thank you, Hertz. For the external analysis, we use the Porter's 5 forces to look at the industry. First, we look at the threat of new entrants. We've concluded that the threat of new entrants is low. This is because the capital requirements needed to enter this industry is high, as well as the need for R&D in order to maintain the industry. Next, we look at the buyers. Cell phone companies are constantly trying to come up with new features and new technology in order to cater to consumer needs. So this gives the buyers relatively high bargaining power. Then, we take a look at the substitutes. In today's world, technology is the basis of everything. Besides cell phones, consumers can use computers, laptops, and even tablets. So there's a variety of substitutes in the industry. As for our suppliers, we've concluded that the suppliers are broken down into two groups. They're the software suppliers and the hardware suppliers. Software suppliers basically have low bargaining power because there's abundance of them and the market is very fragmented. On the other hand, hardware suppliers are very scarce, thus giving them really high bargaining power. Last, when we take a look at the rivalry, we've concluded that although the industry is really small and there are very few firms, it is very concentrated and there's a lot of competition. Now I'll quickly go over our alternatives. Our first alternative is to explore other products, such as TVs or cameras. This would definitely increase our product line. However, there's a risk of not doing as well since these markets are already really saturated. Our second alternative is to expand to developing countries. This will allow us to enter new markets and potentially reach a new consumer base. However, the risk to this would be that the consumers may not like our product. And without adequate research, we may not do as well. Our last alternative is to look for sponsorships in media and sports events. This would definitely increase our brand imaging and even help us in advertising. However, again, without research, the cost may not exceed the benefits. Now I'll pass it off to Hertz again to begin our recommendation.
Thank you, Javier. I would like to start our first recommendation to your company as having to develop a new tablet. We believe that the new tablet should include both the benefits from Apple iPad and the Amazon Kindle Fire. So the new tablet, we believe that should include both Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, 4G, and as well as the front and rear-facing camera. By setting the price point differently according to the memory capacity from $249 to $499, it will increase the gross profit as when the memory capacity increase. So I would like to pass on to Chris to continue our second recommendation.
Thank you, Reeves. For a second recommendation, I'll be going over the operating system. So we believe that you should continue your partnership with Google and stick to using the Android system. Currently, 52.5% of smartphone sales to the end user use the Android system. As you can see from this chart, the Android system is the leading most popular system, with the Nokia Symbian system being a large 40% behind the OS system of Android. So by using the most popular system, you'll be able to cater to the most amount of consumers as well as retaining the most amount of consumers. In addition to that, we have two suggestions. Firstly, to release software updates more frequently, and secondly, to leverage your partnerships with both Microsoft and Google to create a system that's compatible with both Windows and the Android system. Our third recommendation deals with litigation. We suggest for you to drop all lawsuits against Apple and settle a financial agreement out of court. We believe that you can offer two conditions. The first condition being dropping the S3 graphics case and thus ending the patent war entirely, and secondly, offering Apple a percentage of sales as a licensing fee. Through our calculations, we have found that the ongoing litigation costs are at around $40 million a year. We suggest for you to offer 1.88% of your sales per year, which is also $5.89 per phone, as this will be more financially beneficial to your company. You'll be able to mend your partnership or relationship with HTC and Apple, as well as spending your resources on a more productive use. Our fourth recommendation deals with advertising, which will be split up into two parts. The first part is marketing campaigning, and the second part is the marketing expenditures. So currently, when 100 consumers were asked whether or not they knew about the HTC brand, 53 people said yes, compared to Apple's 83 and Samsung's 86. We believe that by standardizing your marketing initiatives, you'll be able to increase your brand awareness. You can do this by number one, focusing on iconic products such as the HTC One, and number two, creating a signature advertisement campaign, as currently consumers feel the lack of a unified brand image when thinking about HTC. So number one, focusing on iconic products. Samsung has been putting forth the Galaxy, resulting in revenues of around $15 billion. We believe you should follow suit, as currently the HTC One has revenues of $5.93 billion, as your strategy is more diversified. However, by putting forth the HTC One, we have calculated that you'll have increased revenues of around $2.3 billion. So here's a pie graph of before the marketing campaign. As you can see, the Samsung Galaxy has a larger percentage of the market share. Through our calculations, we have found that this is the projected sales after the marketing campaign, an increase in $2.3 billion, and less of the market share to Samsung and more of the market share to HTC One product. Lastly, we believe that you should market the products worldwide on the same day to create a buzz around the product in the current regions at which you're selling them. That includes Asia, North America, Europe, and Oceania, as well as focusing on the BRIC countries. Now I'll be passing it off to Belinda, who will be going further in depth with the advertising expenditures, as well as adding more recommendations.
Thank you, Chris. In addition to our third recommendation, we believe that you should increase your advertising expense. By increasing your advertising expense, you would increase your brand recognition and brand awareness. From 2010 to 2011, Apple increased their advertising expense by $242 million, creating a 66% increase in their revenue. We believe that if you increase your advertising expense proportionally from $1.3 billion to approximately $1.6 billion, your revenue would also increase proportionally from $15 billion to $25 billion. This is a significant $10 billion increase in your revenues, which would suggest a return on investment of approximately 6.33. For our last recommendation, we believe that you should decrease the amount of products sold, because we want to be able to create a balance between iconic products and customizable products. By decreasing the number of products sold by 2, you would generate a 10% savings. This is based on the assumption that operating expense is uniform throughout the models. So a 10% savings would provide you a decrease in inventory cost of approximately $84 million. Ultimately, this would increase operating income. This is a chart that shows the incremental savings on inventory cost. So for 10%, you would decrease your inventory cost by approximately $84 million. For 20%, you would decrease your inventory cost around $168 million, and 30% you would decrease it by approximately $252 million. Based on the 10% savings assumption, we believe that your projected growth for operating income would be approximately 3.56%, and your projected growth for your gross profit would be approximately 1.9%, while your operating expense stays the same. To wrap things up, we believe that you should release an HTC tablet that comprises the benefits of both the iPad and the Amazon Kindle Fire. We should continue to use the Android operating system, settle any intellectual property wars. Fourth, also standardize and revise your marketing initiatives to focus on iconic products and increase advertising expense. And finally, you should also decrease the number of models available for sale, which would provide inventory savings costs, and also ultimately increase your income. Thank you, and now I'd like to open up the floor for any further questions.
In your tablet strategy, you indicated that you are recommending that we should incorporate aspects of the Apple iPad and the Kindle Fire. What then becomes our differentiation strategy?
Well, one of the differentiation between the tablets would be that we have different memory capacity, such as the 8 gigs and it goes all the way up to 64 gigs. We believe that consumers try to look for something, well, they either want something that's from the Apple product or the Samsung product. And we believe with the Amazon Kindle product, we believe that by having specs of both, it would be beneficial for the consumers.
I would like to add that the Kindles are both the Apple iPad and the Amazon Kindle Fire does not have include both front-facing and rear-facing camera. So by having those features, we are actually trying to attract customers from both sides.
I'd like to ask what you see. You've made a number of assumptions here in terms of actually some very large assumptions in terms of holding certain numbers constant. What do you feel are the most dangerous assumptions you have made in your presentation?
One of the most dangerous assumptions I feel we made would be that the advertising expense would be proportional to Apple's advertising expense. Because they definitely spend a lot of money on their advertising campaign, and we do not do so well. But if we increase it and we use the same strategy as using this, focusing on the same campaign, and people from around the world understand it is our HTC product, then I believe that brand awareness would definitely bring us a huge benefit.
Yeah, to build on the first question, you also mentioned having a product that would combine, have compatibility with both the Android and Microsoft systems, which, first of all, I want to ask you whether you think the technology exists to do that in a cost-effective way. And secondly, if you think that that's a better strategy than the current one that the company's employing to develop its own user interface that is unique and attracts users.
Can you repeat the question again? I'm a little bit confused.
Okay, the first question asked you about developing a tablet that emulated two products that already exist, and I thought I heard elsewhere in your presentation that you'd indicated that you suggest developing a product that combines the features of both of the largest operating systems. So I was curious as to what the chances were of developing a PA that had those characteristics and whether it would be cost effective to do that as opposed to the strategy that's currently being pursued of developing a unique user interface.
So if we were to produce our own user interface that usually estimated the 88% of innovations wouldn't become successful, and because we have such a strong relationship with both Google and with both Microsoft, we want to leverage those partnerships to get the best of both worlds because people really like Microsoft's Office and also Google's applications because everyone thinks it's easy to use. You can add new features whenever you like. So it's best to actually provide a product that consumers would like instead of trying to produce your own product that might or might not succeed and having to adjust the advertising campaign.
Also, I'd like to add on that one of the main things about the tablets that are out right now are the app stores and also the apps that are available. If we make our own OS, then that means we'll have to have consumers making their own apps and compete with the apps that are already available right now. So so that's one of the things that we believe would be beneficial for us if we incorporate the Android.
In relation to the third recommendation that you made regarding litigation, the question I had for you was, did you consider alternatives to this particular recommendation, and what were the factors that you used to arrive at this one, and what do you feel the likelihood is that this would be accepted by Apple, and what would the impact be if they don't?
Okay, so we have made further research with the litigation costs, and I've come up with the numbers that would be around $250,000 per week. So we have times that by the amount of working weeks and found that it costs around $40 million a year. So we believe that this is a large cost to come out of your assets. And so to calculate the amount acceptable for Apple, we have amortized Apple's intangible assets, which is around $3.5 billion over the useful life, 20 years, to find how much is amortized per year. Then with that, we also find the sales, so 30 million Android phones times the average sale price, to find $9.39 billion per year, that's the revenue. And so we take the amortization per year over the revenue to find that 1.88% of sales per year, which is a good number to offer Apple, which is also $5.89 per phone.
So would this be the final result, or would this be your starting position with that?
Do you think you could rephrase that question?
Well, my question would be, if you go to Apple with an offer, would you start with this offer, or is this where you would intend to end up in terms of settling the litigation?
Yes, we believe that this is a very financially suitable option for Apple, and that they would take this offer, and would be better than continuing ongoing litigation costs of around $40 million per year. However, we can look further into that in the litigation department.
Before I pass it back, prior to offering your recommendations, you offered some alternatives, all of which you found weaknesses. How did that tie into the rest of your presentation? What was the usefulness of the alternatives that were being put forth before you offered your recommendations?
Well, for the first alternative, we thought that exploring other products would be beneficial. However, we concluded that the markets with these products are already really saturated, so we may not do as well. But the reason we came up with this was because when we look at Apple and Samsung, we see that they explore other products such as TVs, computers, and laptops. So we also thought that would be beneficial to us. The second one was to expand to developing countries. We believe that we can actually sell the cell phones to government and then have them use them, and also sell them to consumers. However, we couldn't find enough research to back that this would be beneficial. And this goes the same for the sponsorships. We originally wanted to use this along with our advertising plan. However, we couldn't find enough research to back that the cost would be beneficial. So the cost would outweigh the benefits.
One of you made a recommendation that we would release the Android updates more frequently. How do you possibly expect to be able to leverage that product life cycle faster when we're not in direct control of it?
So we try to recommend to have a faster software update, which currently right now is only the reason why the carrier itself, the phone carrier such as T-Mobile, AT&T, and Sprint that holds up the updating process. So that's why we suggest that if we have the HTC itself, your company itself, to release the update, the operating system updates by your company, it will be faster because it does not have to go through the carrier part of testing. So this is the possible way and make it cost minimal to do it. And then for the short life cycle, product life cycles, because the HTC and Google stopped providing updates, so then the phone itself is not keeping up to date. So customer has to abandon the device to get a new one. So in order to having software updates more frequently, the phone itself can survive longer.
So currently it takes around 6 months for software updates, but this is going through the carrier. We recommend to offer, in addition to going through the carrier, having on the website the software update before going through the carrier, so the consumer can make a decision whether or not to go through the website to get the software update or wait for the carrier to go through its checking of the software.
Just one question. Pricing strategy for your tablet. Where will you place yourself in price?
So we set different price points to our tablet, built-in tablet. Since the memory capacity is the one that differentiates the tablet itself, so we set it with different price point. And since the parts that will cost the same, just not the memory costs differently. So if you have a model that has a higher capacity of memory, the gross power rate will be higher. And this will be setting ourselves into the midpoint. Since the Amazon Kindle Fire is actually costing around 200, and then the Apple iPad will cost 600.
In addition to that, we believe that this is a good price range between the Apple and the Kindle Fire because it comprises the benefits of both products. So if it's a good price range, it's a good deal for the consumer and they feel that there are many features that they would like. In addition to cameras, front facing and rear facing, then I believe that they would definitely buy the product because it would be a good deal.
Okay, to change the subject, a lot of your recommendations or a lot of your conclusions about increases in revenue and decrease in costs were based on focusing on the one product and making that go head-to-head with Galaxy. Can you explain a little bit more where you got your assumptions regarding the increase in the market share that would be realized by that strategy?
Sure. So for this strategy, I have gone over and used the numbers. I have found the numbers for brand awareness. So as I said earlier, 50 out of 100 people said that they do know the HTC brand, and compared to Apple's 83 and Samsung's 86. However, taking numbers from the growth that Samsung has had this year, they had 5% growth in terms of people for the first half of 2011. So that's 10 for the whole year. So we assume that using their strategy, it's very likely that HTC will grow from that percentage too. So we have used 3 categories of brand awareness: aided brand awareness, brand consideration, and brand preference. And we have included the possible growth mimicked after Samsung's growth. And have found that total sales would increase by 5.93 to 8.23 using the weighted average of these 3 factors that influence brand awareness. Resulting in total sales of $8.23 billion.
Did you consider making any acquisitions of external companies to help in our overall strategy and our cost structure?
We believe that for successful acquisitions, your culture and the company you're trying to acquire has to be almost similar, and you would have to have management styles that almost are similar because acquisitions are very difficult to integrate into the company, and you might also lose executives that are very effective in another company because if you have double of the same department, it's not going to help. Acquisition costs would be quite expensive. However, we did not make any calculations for that so far, but I believe that we would have to consult with, we would have to do more research to see what companies would be a better fit for you to acquire.
You've placed a very heavy emphasis on mimicking other companies' successes rather than new product development. Why?
So we believe that the HTC One is a great product. However, the reason why revenues are only at 5.93 is because of your we believe that if you put it forth as your iconic product, consumers will like it as it is comparable to the Samsung Galaxy.
Thank you, well said.
My question is, how do you think consulting? We'd like to thank the board for inviting us here today. We have a few recommendations for you. We are a group of international consultants. My name is Ken Dolitsky. I'm from the United States.
Hi, my name is Ji-Hoon Kim from South Korea.
Hi, I'm Sigori from South Korea also.
So before we get into the presentation, I just want to give you a little basic rundown of what our strategy is as a consulting firm. We believe in three things. We believe that recommendations should be reasonable, we believe they should be effective, and we believe they should be implementable. We're not trying to reinvent the wheel. What we are trying to do is put HTC in a more competitive spot in the smartphone and tablet industry. So with that, let's get into it. Just a quick agenda of what we'll be talking about. First, we'll go into the overview of what exactly we're here for today. From there, we'll briefly touch on our recommendations. G will lead us through a SWOT analysis of HTC. Then Sing Ho will talk about the industry analysis. From there, we'll get right into the alternatives. We have two alternatives for you today, followed by a three-stage recommendation model. From there, we'll talk about a couple of future trends to watch for, and after that, we'll be happy to take any questions that you might have. So the overview. Why did you ask us here today? Well, there's a smartphone industry and a tablet industry that is growing extremely rapidly. So how can HTC take advantage of this growth and position itself with a sustainable differentiation strategy that can put it as a market leader for years to come? So I'll hand it off to Gia to talk about our recommendation.
Thank you, Kenny. So I will just briefly talk about the recommendation. The first stage is cost reductions, second stage is customization, and third is our marketing strategy. So SWOT analysis. HTC is one of the largest handset manufacturer, which is very well recognized. Second, you have two brilliant, excellent teams, which is your management team and then your engineers who are driven, motivated, and smart. Also, there's some weaknesses. HTC do not have in-house operating system. You use Windows and Android. And secondly, they have high manufacturing costs because of a lot of production you have. And then there's opportunities. First, smartphone industry is a very fast and growing industry, so you can take advantage of that. Second, there's high potential sales in Asia. Third, there's a room to grow by creating your own productions and software. The threat. Steve Jobs loves to sue other companies because they want to hinder other firms to grow. So there's something that you have to consider. Secondly, Google, which is your main operating system provider, there is an economy more rollout right now. So there's something to think about because Google might explicitly provide rollout solely. But that's not your main threat right now, but this is something you have to consider. Thirdly, there's poor customer loyalty. So I'm going to pass this to talk about industry analysis.
So, the industry analysis. HTC has 10% of the market share in smartphone market, showing the above. But however, HTC has 2.9% of the market share in tablet market, which they are fifth in the market among these competitors. However, the large screen competitors, Amazon, Samsung, and Apple, they own the 80% of the market share of the tablet markets. Let's look at the graph for the gross margin and the investment on research and development in 2011. HTC has the lowest gross margin among these competitors. And also, for the investment on the R&D are the lowest. So our first alternative will be the increase in the R&D investment. The HTC already have experienced engineers and the highly motivated management team, which will provide to compete with their high-end product competitors, which is the Apple and Samsung. However, this quite large initial investment will cause high liabilities, and also it is hard to get a customer loyalty, which against the Apple, which has a strong customer loyalty. And second, the G will explain the second alternative, which is creating their own operating system for the HTC.
Thank you. So our second alternative would be creating your own operating system. There will be two advantages and two disadvantages. The one advantage is you're going to create your customer loyalty for the HTC product. And the second, you're going to differentiate yourself from Android, Windows, and Apples. However, there's two disadvantages. The one is it's very costly and the time is restraining. And then it's a very established market, so it's difficult to break through. So you will move to our main recommendations. Again, 1, cost reduction, 2, customization, 3, marketing. So stage 1. There's a lot of models from HTC. So why don't you cut down some of less popular models in order to save manufacturing costs? They will help your customers to help your customer to choose the models that they love because they have less options to choose from. The second, phasing out from Windows operating system. First, Windows has only 1.5% of market share when Android has a 53% of market share. So why don't you utilize a free operating system when you don't have to pay $15 per unit for license fee? Discontinuing less popular models and then phasing out from Windows operating system, the final outcome would be $360 million saved for 2013. And then soon is going to talk about customizations.
So stage 2, customization. We Capture Consulting recommend that HTC take a similar strategy as Dell on the smartphone and tablet market. HTC will standardize their contents to use them on both smartphones and tablets. So how? First, we're going to choose the screen size. Depends on the screen size, it could be a smartphone, it could be a tablet, or it could be a tablet. And then, second, you can customize your phone whatever you want. You can choose your RAM, data storage, battery, resolution, and Bluetooth, and CPU and Wi-Fi also. Depends on the customization, the price will be differentiated. So why we customize? First, it'll fulfill the needs for any specs or any price ranges for the customers. And also, it'll achieve the economies of scale and economies of scope. And also, using the standardized frame and the components will reduce the cost. And also, due to the customization, we can dramatically decrease the inventory cost. However, this customization should stay along with the strong brand recognition, which Kenny will explain our last stage, 3, marketing.
Thank you, Sunil. So after thinking about the first two stages that we recommended, we thought
what was a weakness that we could focus on to strengthen both of our first two stages recommendations. Based on a study done by HTC, based on aided brand awareness, which essentially means consumers were asked questions such as, what smartphones have you heard of? What smartphones would you recommend to a friend? HTC scored the lowest in that survey. On the flip side, in a similar survey done, consumers also said that they felt HTC phones were the best values for their money. So we believe that HTC should take advantage of the superb customer reviews for their phones with increased brand loyalty and increase the consumer base. So how would this happen? We've come up with a marketing outreach strategy plan. So essentially what this would be is setting up small mobile outlets, as we call them. You can imagine it as pretty much a tent with a bunch of HTC products in them. You would see this set up outside of large concerts or large sporting events, anywhere where you have thousands of people going in and out. They will see the HTC brand on the tent. They'll say, hey, let's go try that out for free. We can go try out some awesome smartphones, awesome tablets. So essentially what we believe this would do, we could take advantage of those customer reviews by getting the phone into people's hands. While it's not necessarily it's not a change in the retail channel. This is essentially a marketing plan. There's also supplemental revenues that could be generated from this marketing. If people were to decide to buy HTC phones or tablets on the spot at a discounted price. So there's both the marketing phase and the increase in sales. Lastly, we've come up with a college brand representation strategy. Essentially what this would be is you reach out to college students on college campuses, and based on the proper representatives that HTC selected, you would send them a free HTC One and a free tablet, and in return the student would market on their Facebook and on their Twitter. They would say, hey, come check out this awesome phone, and hopefully they would get other students that they're friends with to go check out the phone and see how good the phone is. And it would raise brand awareness on college campuses, as well as brand loyalty, because you'd be going after the younger group. You hopefully have them for years to come in the future. Lastly, with the marketing plan, the last idea that we had was to take advantage of the existing relationship with Dr. Dre's Beats. Dr. Dre is one of the most well-respected, not just musicians, not just rappers, but he's also a producer, also a record label. He's a hard worker. He pays attention to detail, and there are people from all age ranges that go to his concerts. He's been around for 20 years, so there are young people that listen to him, there are people in their 40s that listen to him. So our idea is to partner with him, as well as his brand, as well as his recording label, and possibly set up those tents at concerts. You could follow Dr. Dre on his tour. You'll see on the next slide exactly what the projections are for that. But we believe by doing this, it's a unique opportunity for HTC. There aren't any other smartphone manufacturers partnered with a huge musician like this, especially with Beats Audio. So this will also help raise brand loyalty, as well as brand awareness. Our idea for the time suggestion, we set about 9 months. That could be changed. We have it right now set as a pilot suggestion. But we believe that the costs will not be too great because of these supplemental revenues generated by the sales at the tents. This is just a suggestion. It could easily be expanded. It can be scaled to any amount of artists, any amount of cities that you choose. So just a quick summary of the cost. If we train 8 employees at $50 an hour, which is more competitive than Apple's $12 an hour, essentially we came up with a cost per city with 100 events of $172,000. If each employee sells 1 unit per hour at the event, that would be a total sales revenue of $1.2 million. From there, I'll let you talk about the final projections.
Thank you. So with our recommendation, this is what we projected for HTC. First, smartphone sales will increase from 10% to 20%. And the tablet is going to increase from 2.9% to 11.3%. And then cost reduction by customization, we're going to you will make $1.7 million, and with our recommendations, your total sales will increase to $30 million. And then Kenny will find complete our presentations.
So lastly, we decided to do some research into trends that are emerging, some emerging technologies. They don't pose any serious threats currently from any of our competitors, but they're things that they could possibly, it's worth it to keep an eye on in the future. The first thing we have is 3D printing technologies. Essentially what this is, it's an inkjet, it's like an inkjet printer. Instead of ink, it spits out molten plastic. It's extremely effective, it's extremely cost effective. So what this would do is further reduce manufacturing costs. The next idea we have is big data. Big data is essentially huge sets of data, and the need for big data analysts, essentially a software that can break down this big data into trends, is something that HTC should definitely keep an eye on as well. There's a possibility of maybe creating a handheld device that has big data software capabilities, so that you could also market to enterprises and businesses as well as individuals. So lastly, just to conclude, 3 points we want to leave you with. Cost reduction. Cut down the models, cut windows. Secondly, customization of tablet and smartphones. Put the power into the hands of the people, let them decide what they want. And lastly, it's brand recognition. Let's get more customers. Thank you for having us. We'll be glad to take any questions now.
Thank you. I have a question for you regarding cost reduction. You talked about reducing the number of models, but you're also talking about customization, which would essentially add more models to the product line. And so I'm curious how that would result in an increase in profit or decrease in cost, given that you're going to increase the number of potential models that you have to produce. How does that result in a savings and increase in profit for the company?
So the first thing is like we're gonna cut off the unpopular models, and we're gonna keep the popular models, which has like differentiate between the size of the screen. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna customize the same frame, and we're going to use the same components. So it'll reduce the unit cost of each device. And also, the smartphone industry is booming up. Like compared to the previous year, it booms like 1.5 times. And also, we project the market share will increase like twice. So we project that the sales will double, and also because of the unit cost, reduce the cost with the customization.
Just to jump in on that real quick, we mentioned Dell, and so what Dell does currently is they, at least in 2012, they make products that are made to order. So yes, there are products, but the inventory is not backed up. You make a product as someone orders it. So essentially, they're only selling a product that someone orders.
2011, HTC bought a lot of inventories, but they do not produce that much cheap models, so they have an inventory in their pocket right now. But they are not, by reducing model, they don't have to produce it, but they can sell it in order to customize customer products.
I stole the microphone because I wanted to ask a question that keyed off of what you were just saying, and maybe it would help to go back to that slide on the customization, because there was a lot going on there. But my question at the moment is, you referenced Dell, and you order from Dell, and then they produce the product. But I see an inconsistency that I wish you could explain to me in terms of your ability to customize your product. And on the other hand, you're introducing these new marketing channels where you would be selling products on the spot to different types of consumers who didn't even necessarily come to the place where they are at for the purpose of buying your product. So they need to make instantaneous decisions, and they need to customize a product, and then they want to have it in their hands. How are you going to do that instantaneously?
Just to clarify on the marketing sales, we look at those as a supplement to the marketing. It's more of a marketing strategy. So no, they wouldn't be customizable there. There would be models there ready for them to buy if they decide to buy them there. But outside of that, on the online retailer area, that's where the customization will take place.
We're gonna have a few laptops right there, and then so if people love their products, they can customize their phones right on the spot.
Early in your presentation, you discussed weaknesses, and two of them that I really didn't see addressed very much, I'd like you to expand on. Weakness of not having an OS, and a weakness of lacking knowledge in tablet production. How do you address that?
The first thing was
No OS and weakness in tablet production.
so that's a weakness that the HTC have, obviously. But the thing is, that's why HTC do not have their customer loyalty. They rather have Android customers that who comes in who likes the hardware for HTC. So that's why we have alternatives that has OS making their own OS, but there are disadvantages that which is costly and then time consuming. The first HTC has a lot of liabilities, so it's something that HTC should not jump into right now, but there's something they have to consider in order to build their customer loyalty. Also, secondly, the tablet. By having our customizations, people will customize their ideal tablet. So that's something that customer will love because they can customize their.
If you have a weakness in building something repeatedly over and over again, why is it that you think you can build one that's a custom model?
Well, it's all about putting the power into the hands of the people. I mean, I understand where your concern is coming from, but we believe that giving people more options with the tablet and not just giving them a single model to choose from will allow them to essentially pick a model that they want. It's not just limiting their options, it's expanding their options.
Among the many investment, R&D, and other assumptions you have made, what do you consider to be the potentially most dangerous assumptions you have made?
Could you repeat that? Sorry.
Among the many assumptions you have made in your analysis tonight, what do you consider to be the potentially most dangerous assumption for us to consider?
Because of the penetration of the feature phones goes down and the smartphones, the market share goes up. So we assume that Nokia and Reeves lost their customers and we got their customers. So that's why we said we're going to get 10% to 20% of the smartphones and 2.9% to 11.3% to the tablet market. So we think that this trend is going on, like the HTC has a chance to get customers from the feature phone markets, which is good. Nokia and the Reeves is good. So I think that's the.
At the same time, it's not just assuming that we're going to grab the market share, but we also believe that with the marketing strategy we propose, that's where those lost customers from Nokia and Research in Motion would come from.
You recommended increasing expenditures on R&D. Exactly how is that going to translate to your bottom line? What will R&D provide to you moving forward in terms of your product offerings?
Well, I think some things to keep in mind are those future trends to watch for. Potentially HTC could be a first mover on both 3D printing for manufacturing. as well as the big data supplier. So if you increase the R&D and you work on 3D printing and you focus your manufacturing on 3D printing, that in turn will lower the manufacturing cost per unit.
But aren't those long-term strategic moves that wouldn't have immediate applicability to the results?
Yeah, absolutely. It's long term, and that's we wanted to make recommendations that would put HTC in the driver's seat for years to come, not just for next year and 2 years from now.
In relation to the litigation that is currently in place between the HTC and Apple, what would your recommendation on that be? How to resolve that? What are the potential issues that you see in that? And how do we move forward from there?
That's why customization comes in. We're gonna have different size, different models, different RAMs, memories, and things like that. So that's what. So people customize their products. So that's not something that we produce. That's custom produced. And then there's since we have a lot of different size, different memories, and stuff like that. So we can get out of that pattern work from Apple.
So you think that would resolve it just by changing the future production as opposed to the suit, which is, I think, built around previous production and IP infringement?
I mean, there's a lot of animal going on, obviously. It's really hard to get away from it. I think the best way is not facing it, because the pen is something that already is already is established. That's something that you can get away from. So that why don't you try to not facing it and then try to go around it.
Did you consider any strategies associated with external company acquisitions to come forward as a recommendation?
Again, I think that's where the future trends to watch for. There are plenty of big data startups that are offering software analytics for larger companies. So I think that an acquisition of a firm that is focusing on big data would be a great thing. It'd be a great thing to spend some money on, and it would, like I said, it would give us a first move in terms of smartphone manufacturers into that industry.
I think we're good.
Thank you very much.
Also, I have a question in regards to the marketing strategy you were talking about, in regards to like partnering with Dr. Dre. How effective do you think this would be, like taking into consideration that just last year, they got rid of a state that they had in Beats Electronics?
Yeah, I didn't get that.
Last year in September, HTC broke their ties with Beats, so I was thinking like, how effective could it be to partner again with Beats and using Dr. Dre as a figure to market your products?
Well, this is this is from 2012. I think you're referring to 2013 breakup of HTC Beats, and
okay, my mistake.
I'm a bit confused about your first
as to why this wasn't included in the recommendation?
Yes.
Like I mentioned, there's a lot of liabilities that HEC has, so why don't you, so leveraging is not a good option for HEC right now because there's a lot of lots of liability. So why don't you take the risk further? And what if HEC do not do well? That's the problem. So that's why we do not recommend because it's way too high costly, and then we have the HEC already has high debt.
Hi. Yeah, so you said you're gonna abandon the Windows Phone and go more towards Chrome, which is a fair assumption, like, given the success of sorry, I said Chrome, the Android and its prospects. But like, given like the very uncertain market, like it's very uncertain, it's quick changing trends. You have the Nokia being the biggest, owning the majority of the market, then they're relatively nothing now. And you have Google going from 100% to like 50% of the market. So how do you plan to hedge against these fast changing trends? And if Windows does become the favorable phone, like how can you assure that you will react quickly enough?
If you just look year over year at Windows market share, it has decreased steadily. So that's where the decision came from. And the cost associated with it were just too high at $15 per unit. But it really came down to the trends that were being established, which was that Android is increasing in popularity and that Windows is decreasing in popularity. So yes, we're making an assumption. If that were to change, we also gave the second alternative, which was to make a HTC operating system. But yeah, we are making the assumption that Windows will not make a recovery.
I think it's a reasonable assumption because first, you cannot, for Windows Phone, you cannot change your...
We are Calypso Consulting Group, and we're here to provide our analysis on HTC's performance over recent years, as well as provide strategic recommendations going forward. This is my amazing team, Frank Lasso, Mike Aina, and Amy Cook, and my name is Sally Liu. So let's get started. So we're going to be looking at HTC's history of first, as well as their core competencies and a brief SWOT analysis, followed by select financial trends, the issues that we've sort of identified, and then our strategic recommendations. So HTC has a history of first, from the first pocket PC to PDA to smartphone, innovative touchscreen technology, and the first smartphone to run on Android's operating system, as well as the LTE network. HTC has really led the way. And at the core, this is due to their innovation and core competency in R&D and innovation, as well as having focusing on sort of catering to their consumer, being flexible and customizable, and offering premium quality products. Now, while HTC sort of has now made ground in the smartphone industry, their current Quietly Brilliant campaign has hindered some brand recognition and growth forward. So we believe that it's time to make some noise. Frank?
Now, in order for HTC to become that louder, more potent competitor in the marketplace, we feel that the firm really needs to address certain issues, several of which we've highlighted here in our brief SWOT analysis. Over the course of this presentation, we hope to be able to go over what we feel are the most pressing issues facing the firm, the ones that they can and should seek to correct in the short run. We're going to be going over what we feel are their weaknesses in terms of being outspent by their competitors in both R&D and marketing, as well as exploring their options in terms of developing better relationships with their carriers in order to really reach out and expand their market base of potential customers. On the opportunity side, we're going to be touching on the market growth in both the smartphone industry and the tablet market, as well as what potential strategic moves HTC can make in that area. And then we're going to be wrapping it up with a brief analysis of what HTC's options are as far as moving forward with their operating strategy issues. Now, looking at select financial information from the company, over the past few quarters, HTC has really reported really healthy revenues, and yet we've noticed a trend that the company has struggled to control the costs associated with generating those revenues. This is really eaten into the profitability of the firm, and hopefully by addressing the issues we just briefly discussed in our SWOT analysis, we can show that HTC can operate at a higher level of profitability and enjoy better profits on margins on those profits. Now, the reason we feel these issues need to be addressed is because of the concerning trends we've noticed in the way the market has started to look at HTC. Over the past year, the market cap of the firm has shrunk from 24 billion to just under 14 billion, a drop of about 40%. In addition to this, their PE ratio has dropped from a multiple of 18 to a multiple of just over 6, a drop of 60%. We've interpreted these results as a sign that the market is starting to lose confidence in the firm's ability to generate value. Now, an encouraging note is that based on our calculations, HTC has about $1.8 billion in free cash flow to really adjust their strategy and sort of recapture that lost market confidence and prove to investors that this is a firm that can continue to create value.
So we've identified 4 key issues that sort of overarched by a broader issue of profitability and growth, which Frank's mentioned. The first key issue here is how can HTC continue to compete in such a competitive environment, competing against the likes of Samsung or Apple? How can they really differentiate their product and improve sales and profitability? The second issue is strategic partnerships. So HTC has relatively weak carrier relationships here in the US. The third and fourth issue that we're going to be looking at is this, the tablet and operating system strategies for HTC. So should HTC continue to compete in the tablet industry despite not really making much ground there? And should they perhaps acquire or develop their own proprietary technology or operating system, or work with current partners such as Android and Windows operating system? So we divided our recommendations into 2 broad categories. The first is branding, and the second is product. The goal of our branding recommendations is to increase global sort of awareness of HTC and recognition of their brand. And then the goal of our product recommendations is to cut costs and really streamline our product line, your product line. Sort of bridging these 2 recommendations is our categories is our key recommendation, which is a new hero line of flagship product. So why is it really important for HTC to come out with an innovative flagship product? Well, we see from this graph here that HTC is sandwiched between 2 fierce competitors, Samsung, which has lower price, high unit sales, and Apple, which is the opposite. They're both sharing much higher revenues than HTC, so we think it's really important that HTC steps up and innovates. So increased focus on and emphasis on a hero line really means ceasing small iterations between phones. So here's an example. HTC Sensation and the HTC Evo were released within about 2 months of each other and had relatively similar features. So we think it's more important to increase the average product cycle, really increase it a little bit in order to draw out consumer anticipation and ultimately increase your brand reputation. So our proposed hero line that we came up with, we would call the Elite Series, and this would be your global flagship product. We've budgeted about $500 million in R&D, as well as what you put in to develop the HTC One, which just came out this April. So we would launch the Elite Series in about a year to 15 months after the HTC One was launched. And we also believe that it's really important for HTC to continue looking into strategic partnerships such as S3 Graphics and Dashwire, which we've partnered with in the past, and Beats Audio, which we've seen a lot of success from in order to target a younger audience. We've seen an opportunity here. You could really continue to work on your relationships with U.S. carriers. And my colleague Amy is going to talk about this shortly.
So as my colleague Frank said earlier during our brief SWOT analysis, one of the weaknesses that HTC currently has is their current marketing campaign. What makes the marketing campaign weak compared to their competitors is the fact that they hold no emphasis on the features when advertising their products. They don't show the differentiation between their products and their competitors. When Apple introduced the iPhone 4S, they really marketed the new Siri software, which provided a more social interaction between the consumer and the phone. When Samsung introduced the Galaxy Note, they really focused on their internal features, such as the new AMOLED screen, the new dual-core processor, and the new stylus pen and easy sharing, which are just features to help enhance a consumer's interaction with the phone. Now, we have 3 possible recommendations that HTC can choose from when revamping the marketing campaign. Signing on celebrity endorsements, picking up some primetime spots, or picking up NFL football advertising spots. Now, with celebrity endorsements, they will help boost the brand image and help boost brand perception among their consumers. We suggest that HTC choose emerging youth icons in order to reach that younger audience that they're really trying to go for right now. We suggest Chris Evans and Chris Hemsworth because they're both stars in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, which has become a worldwide brand. And by the time the Avengers release later this summer, they will become international stars.
We feel that if you're going to have a hero line, you need to have a hero marketing campaign. So in terms of commercial marketing between your primetime spots and your NFL advertising spots, they're relatively cost the same, with the NFL costing slightly more. And that's because they have the greater audience, which is what HTC really needs to pick up right now. By advertising during the NFL spots, they would reach the 64% of Americans that watch NFL football, which means that you would have much more brand awareness among your consumers. Here's a proposed marketing budget for the U.S. market. If they choose to go this route, I would suggest it. It would cost roughly $100 million, and although this applies to the U.S. market, it can be easily adapted for international markets as well.
So now we're going to be talking about our product recommendations. So streamlining the number of models currently on the market sort of falls in line with complementing our hero emphasis. So currently HTC has around 50 models worldwide on the market, and we believe that you should really streamline this. We know that you can receive a 10% decrease in costs relating to materials costs if you do so, and this would also decrease problems with app developers who have to constantly update the apps when new models are released.
Now, when examining HTC's position in the tablet market, despite listing it as an opportunity in our SWOT analysis, we feel that it's an opportunity the firm should look to capitalize on in the future as opposed to the short term. Only because, going off of what my colleague Mike said, there are problems in the smartphone industry, namely their lack of brand awareness and your lack of feature differentiation, translates into the tablet market. When the HTC Flyer and the Jetstream were released this year, they were also priced non-competitively, which led to low sales volume. Based on our calculations, those tablets only accounted for about 2% of HTC's total 2011 revenue. And in order to overcome these challenges, we feel that the significant investment that HTC would need to make would be better spent refocusing on the smartphone industry through innovation and brand awareness. And then once HTC becomes a more potent competitor in that market, going forward, they could leverage your new success in the smartphone industry to explore the tablet market at a later date.
HTC also needs to focus on improving its relationship with carriers. Specifically, we're talking about Sprint and Verizon Wireless, both of which have been notorious for not carrying certain HTC phones, as well as rebranding phones and making custom versions. This is a major problem for HTC since Verizon Wireless is #1 on the market and Sprint is #3. Here we are focusing specifically on Verizon Wireless. They are currently in a joint branding program where they are focusing heavily on the Android operating system rather than the hardware company making the phone. They actually chose to release the HTC Joint Incredible 4G instead of the HTC One, which is supposed to be HTC's hero product. And this HTC One is actually incompatible with Verizon's network. Verizon also chose to institute a $100 million advertising campaign for this joint branding program. We believe this advertising campaign hindered HTC's brand awareness. Verizon's decision not to sell the HTC One truly hurt HTC's bottom line. Verizon Wireless currently has 31.6% of the carrier market share. This means that HTC lost 31.6% of its potential market. We believe that HTC lost $930 million because of Verizon's decision. This number is based off of the average selling price of the phone as well as projected subscribers. Moving forward, we believe that HTC should create a co-branding strategy with Verizon Wireless. Here we have projected some costs, which have both conservative and optimistic projections. We believe Verizon will pay HTC $3 to $5 per month per HTC Joy Elite Series phone subscriber and $20 to $30 million per year for the hardware for this series. In this series, HTC will be the only manufacturer of the phones, and this will help align Verizon's demands with HTC's innovation. Verizon will also have a $50 million plus advertising campaign specifically for this program. And all of these phones will also run on Android operating system only. This will help reduce HTC's costs and increase the profits. Now there are many benefits and disadvantages to operating solely on Android and eliminating Microsoft Windows operating system. Some of the main benefits include the reduced licensing fees, and really giving the people what they want because Android does have such a high market share. Android also has a larger app base, which is really important to consumers. And some of the main disadvantages would include the time and money HTC has already spent in developing a relationship with Microsoft. Also, we believe that in the future, Google and Samsung may create an alliance which would possibly box out HTC from the market. And we believe at the end that HTC should not rule out buying or developing its own operating system.
So in conclusion, we believe that it's time for HTC to take a louder step forward, emphasizing our hero line, streamlining the number of models available on the market, and then revamped marketing campaigns such as given by Mike. So we believe that we could achieve a reduction in costs through the decrease in production materials, as well as cutting out those licensing fees with Windows and the tablet production line completely. We think we could achieve recognition and profitability increases through the revamped marketing campaign, which would drive sales, as well as creating strategic partnerships with carriers in the U.S., such as Ames said earlier. So where will this take you if we follow our recommendations? We've done some projections here. On the left, we have actual historical numbers from 2009, 10, and 11, and then on the right, we have 2012 and 13 projections. So basically, we just go down and look down to net profit and operating profit. We're increasing these over the years. And the 2012 column is just taking into account the decreased costs, but the increased revenue due to the hero line and the Verizon deal, etc. Thank you.
You gave a very specific description of the features that the competitors that Apple and Samsung had, yet you did not talk about features that you would recommend for our products. Can you fill us in on that?
Yeah. So when looking at HTC, what we really noticed is what consumers really responded well to was the new HTC Sense, which was their user interface. And we would heavily market that more. We also market more the Beats Audio software, the Beats Audio hardware, which is integrated into the phone. And that way, for those that are content phone users, I guess, like the music ones, we would really emphasize that.
In addition, with the release of the HTC One, we feel that a marketing campaign towards highlighting the fact that the HTC One is one of the first phones with a quad-core processor will also help differentiate HTC's phones from their competitors going forward.
What are the assumptions in your final analysis regarding the increase in profits related to delaying any further marketing of the tablets, and further onto that, down the road, what would the barriers to re-entry into the market be in terms of reintroducing a tablet so late in the process when everyone else is probably mature?
Well, we feel some of the barriers going forward would definitely be the fact that HTC would have a late start to the game, but we feel that once HTC has really found a successful formula in the smartphone industry, they'll be able to leverage what they've learned there in really developing a more advanced tablet, especially since HTC does have a rich history of R&D. We feel that continuing to focus on that R&D without compromising the smartphone industry would potentially help overcoming such barriers once HTC decides to re-enter the tablet market after years.
Just to go back to the original question, is the analysis at the end assuming then that there are no sales and revenues and profits growing from sales of tablets then?
Yes, that is correct. The projections at the end of 2012 and for 2013 take into consideration the fact that HTC would stop selling tablets in the short term. So no sales or any costs associated with those production numbers were included in those projections.
Thank you.
We just went over, first of all, some features you would propose for this new Hero product, the Elite series. I'm curious about the change in direction to become more compatible and more aligned with Verizon. First of all, do you see some downsides to that in terms of relationships with other carriers? And secondly, how would you implement that development if you're specifically going to develop a phone that overcomes an
first, to begin with, we would not start developing the phone until Verizon is on board because a lot of the features would depend on what Verizon wants. So we're trying to incorporate our innovation with what they want since they have that inventory expertise and they're demanding custom versions. And we also believe that Verizon would do this deal because they have been looking into making a deal with other companies such as RIM in the past. And they really do want to, beat out the iPhone and have something superior to that, even though they are carrying the iPhone. And
I'd just like to add on to that. Through our analysis, we found out that carriers do like to have a flagship product that they can sort of call their own or brand their own. So like Amy said, we have seen that Verizon has been reaching out to operators in order to try to get their own flagship product. So we do believe that they would be interested in this sort of deal. And we also know that, through our analysis of the Sprint deal with the iPhone and AT&T's original deal with the exclusivity of the iPhone, it's done wonders for their product. So we believe that we could do the same for the Elite series with HTC.
One of your recommendations was that you were going to increase the cycle between major product introductions. How will that affect sales near the tail end of those product cycles, given that the consumers may view our product as stale during the time period?
Well, we would probably disagree with that. When we were conducting some consumer analysis, we found that because there were so many models on the market with relatively similar features, it was actually hard for consumers to know what was different about the models and what model was better than the other due to these features. So in a way, we believe that streamlining the product line would actually add to the consumer experience of going out and purchasing a cell phone.
Are there any assumptions in your analysis regarding the resolution of the IP litigation?
Well, to go off of the reason we didn't include the IP litigation is we feel that because of the nature of the industry, it's going to be an ongoing concern, and really that there was really no viable option is for HTC to solve the issue in the short run. But we did look into it some more, and we feel that HTC has certain options. HTC can choose to farm intellectual property, acquire intellectual property, or license intellectual property. Given our analysis of the state of the industry, we feel that the first two options are not so viable for HTC, considering that they are outgunned in terms of both cash and intellectual property that competitors have. So we feel going forward that the best option would be licensing. So as far as assumptions go, towards our projections, that would be the case, that we assume that HTC would go towards that option.
What assumptions did you make regarding the price point for this new flagship product? Would it be directly competitive with the iPhone, or would you be at a lower price point?
Well, ideally, we would be able to produce the phone at a similar cost to the iPhone and therefore price it in a competitive way to really try to challenge the iPhone in the market. However, our projections were based on the average cost of current HTC phones, which are higher than market average. For example, the HTC One, which is priced higher than its competitors. So I suppose, looking at the projections, one should take that into consideration.
Of all the assumptions you've made in the presentation this evening, which ones worry you the most?
I would have to say, of all the assumptions, it would be the IP issue, considering the fact that it is a volatile market. We don't know whether the IP issue will force HTC to reduce sales due to maybe some sort of ban being put on their products. So I feel, I suppose that would be the most worrisome for us, considering, again, it's a problem that we think is going to continue to affect the market going forward.
Any questions?
Hi, I'd like to thank you again for a great presentation. One question I had, when you suggested going with Verizon, offering like hero phones through them, HTC just lost the contract, like their phone for Android using Samsung Galaxy S2, I believe. What do you think will differentiate HTC from what Samsung does offer? Like if you were competing like for that contract with Samsung. Thank you.
Sorry, we're so confused because we can't see where you are. Can you like put your hand up? Oh, okay, hi. I'll just start by saying that I think it's important to note, I have a graph here, so you can find it about the So it's interesting in the survey that we analyzed, Samsung consumers tend to have increased brand recognition or awareness of the Samsung brand, but in terms of actual preference or sort of satisfaction with the actual Samsung phone, the survey numbers aren't that much higher than the HTC product. However, our products are priced higher. So I guess answering your question, I would say probably the fact that our products are more premium, like a premium quality product, higher than Samsung's quality, and then I think the quality of our product as well as the overall satisfaction that our user gets from it. So when HTC implemented the HTC Sense user interface over top of the Android operating system, we saw the user experience and satisfaction increase a lot by that due to the way that you could sort of be personal with your phone. So we think innovative technologies like that, as well as obviously acquiring things like DashWire and Saffron Digital to sort of implement those technologies with our phone, will keep us innovative over Samsung, but at a slightly higher price point, obviously.
Any other questions? One more.
Hi, my question is based on Google's acquisition of Motorola. What would be your plan if Motorola began receiving software updates and the newer software prior to any other companies involved? Would you then maybe turn to HTC Sense or just continue a bigger marketing push for all the HTC phones?
Well, I think through our analysis of HTC, we found that HTC has a very, very strong team of engineers and R&D department. So definitely creating a phone operating system is not without the realm of possibility. But Google has mentioned that they are not going to offer Motorola preferential treatment, so we don't see it as a real issue going forward.
Hello. Thank you for your presentation. Just curious, by teaming up exclusive with this marketing or with this deal with Verizon, be exclusive, or will you still be in operation with both AT&T and Sprint? And how do you think this might affect your relationship by creating a phone exclusively for Verizon?
Although we are creating the phone exclusively for Verizon Wireless, we are going to offer other models throughout the other carriers. But we believe that since Verizon is the largest carrier, that our priority and ability to really funnel our phones through them will help bring more brand awareness and really the perspective from, the brand awareness basically to our customers and really help bring HTC to the forefront and then moving forward, go back and, maybe open up the market again to other carriers.
I think this works, yeah, it does. Well, with the light shining, I can't see very much in front of me, but first of all, my name is Roger Orlando, and on behalf of the judges panel, I just want to say a couple words. You should all be proud of being associated with a program that produces the kind of quality that we saw tonight. Both the students and the faculty should really be step back and just know that it's pretty impressive, you know, being in industry and then seeing the work that you guys put together, which in a lot of ways represented the real life of industry and the difficult decisions that have to be made out there. So don't take that for granted and be proud to be associated with that kind of program. I'm just going to give you some top-level comments first, and if I miss anything after I announce the winner, then I'll ask my fellow judges here to just chime in if I missed something that was important during our feedback session. But I'll start really with the questions that we were asked to grade and try to compare and contrast what we heard tonight and give you that type of feedback. How well did the teams identify and frame the key issues in the case? We thought that was probably the strongest part that we saw consistently through the 3 briefings that we heard. You know, teams went through that fairly thoroughly. The one comment that came across here, probably in the future that you might take into account is, you know, we're the board of directors of the company. You probably don't need to spend as much time giving us background about a company that we all know and love very well. So you could probably spend more of your time and more of your real estate on your charts dealing with the core issues as opposed to giving us background about our company. But generally speaking, all 3 companies did probably the strongest, consistently anyway, in terms of comparing and contrasting in this area. How well the teams analyze the situation. This is where we start to see some of the contrast in terms of that analysis. You know, the 2 teams that didn't win probably spent more time trying to cram more stuff into their presentation and giving less specifics about that analysis than the team that ultimately won. The team that won probably did less in this area, but gave more analysis and more concrete information about those areas. So they came across as much more well-versed in terms of the analysis that was provided to us, even though they probably touched on less content than the other 2 teams. So there was less rushing that we saw there. The teams that were trying to cram too much information were going really fast and really came across less credible due to the speed that they were trying to keep up during the presentation because they had so much material. How well did the team consider credible alternatives? Reasonable alternatives on all 3 teams. The alternatives of the winning team, frankly, we felt like that team was an industry. They looked at real-life issues of you know, partnerships, of retrenchment of products, you know, and things that were tough decisions that companies have to make when they have to come up to the point and realize, hey, it's not all about us, it's about the marketplace and how we leverage the total marketplace in our go-forward strategy. So there was starting to be differentiation amongst the team that we ultimately selected and the other 2 teams. Lastly, the recommendations. The 2 teams that were not selected really had relatively weak ties between their recommendations and their analysis. In some cases, the recommendations did not even address parts of the analysis. The team that ultimately was selected had a very, very close and tight tie on their analysis to their recommendations, to the point of even you know, disagreeing with 1 or 2 of our questions and having the gumption to do that. And base it upon what we had just heard in their analysis. Right or wrong, they framed their answers to their questions based on the analysis. So tying recommendations to analysis and making sure that that was thoroughly addressed, we saw a pretty good contrast you know, throughout the discussion. How well did the teams respond to the judges' questions, and that was really what differentiated team number 3 as the winner of the competition. We were very, very impressed with the poise, the lack of the degree of detail in the responses, and again staying on message in terms of how they answered all the questions and really tying it back to what we had previously heard in terms of the analysis. So again, on behalf of the people behind me, I commend all of you for the great work that you did, and I want to remind you, just be proud to be part of such a great program, and I congratulate all the participants, and especially team number 3 for a fantastic presentation. Thank you.
I'd just like to thank the students for all of the attention that they've paid throughout the presentations and the good questions that they asked. I would also like to thank the School of Management for allowing me to participate in this process. It was very enjoyable, and I did think that everyone did a good job. So thank you very much for that.
Thank you all for your time tonight. The formal part of the evening finishes here. You are free to go at any time you want. The 3 teams, please wait here for your picture with the judges. And once again, please join me in thanking the judges and everyone else for their time.